Ruth Ray, who is the STEM integration coordinator at the Warrensville City School District, had a real fear of math as a student. She wishes now that she could have conquered that fear and advises young people to never, ever stop trying to figure out everything.
My name is Ruth Ray. I am the STEM integration coordinator at the Warrensville City School District. My undergrad degree was water resource management with a minor in biology, which gave me environmental engineering undergrad degree. Then I
Okay.
went on to grad school and obtained my master's of education.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you, in 3 sentences or less, talk about the path that led you to where you are now, career-wise?
So no, so when I graduated from college, I was able to obtain a job as an environmental instruction site inspector. So at that point, I did all of the quality water inspects, best management practices. I did all those things on the construction site. So I did that for a few years, and at the time, I was constantly speaking in schools. Like, hey, come and talk to our kids. Let them know about your career and what you're doing, blah, 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 this and this and that. So it became really interesting. I like that more than, going out in the field, which I love my job. I was brought to my job because as a child, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I was so in love with the life science and natural science, but not in love with the bloods and guts. So I quickly at my university, I found something that was really comparable to what I really enjoy, and that's the environment. So after that, I said, you know what? Yeah, I think I may want to look into teaching. And at the time, there was a big lack of science teachers. So I took advantage of having, almost 80 credits in sciences and applied for a position in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Actually, September of 1999 was when I started in education. And I started as a resource science teacher for K-6. I went on and taught middle school science. Then I ended up teaching high school science. All the subject areas. Opportunity came to lead a classroom. I took an opportunity at the district level to work in career tech education. And in career tech education, I was able to run all the agriculture and environmental and engineering pathway programs. So that opportunity came. I worked that for years. And then Warrensville City School District was looking for someone with a background in STEM and also some secondary knowledge. And I had both. I took the job. And when I took the job, I was a secondary academic coordinator. So it was all programming for secondary education, 6 through 12. And in that program, it was big emphasis on STEM education. So taking an opportunity of really doing some project-based professional development, doing as many STEM we did a lot of STEAM fairs, and we call it STEAM in our district because arts is a huge part of it. So I mean, we did 2 fairs a year, and in doing those 2 fairs a year, we began to build our STEAM advisory team. So we were able to build the STEAM advisory team of community partners of almost 18 to 20 um, very involved and intentional community partners. And then at that time, we were always building a strategic plan for STEM. Our district made a large investment in and a commitment to STEM education. We got new buildings built. So our elementary building is built with a dedicated space for digital fabrication, making, and other things like that. And then 2 other dedicated spaces are new middle and high school. So in turn, we developed the district STEAM plan, district-wide K-12, and then my position changed to the STEM integration coordinator. And we'll currently be opening up our first lab tomorrow,
Oh,
actually,
fantastic.
at the Warrensville City School Elementary. So K-5 will be involved in that and they'll come there as a part of one of their electives. The teacher will bring them down. We'll do a co-teaching. We'll be doing co-teaching strategy, and have them in that space at least once a week, twice a month, as it so. That's how I got into the shorter the long, the longer the short, that brought me into STEM education. But it's always been I'm a graduate of East Technical High School. So
Okay, so let me ask you the big question. Beyond the acronym itself, what does STEM mean to you?
STEM means to me, I'm glad you said that. As I delve into STEM and STEAM education, is definitely a framework of teaching and learning. It gives those scholars an opportunity to do what they learn. And that's why I love the world of STEM education. So it's a framework of teaching and learning, which is definitely, as I say, an avenue for all learners to learn the way that they need to learn. So that's STEM.
Throughout your education, throughout your career, did you have any mentors that helped you along?
I definitely, one of my first mentors was Bill Batters, in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Bill was a science teacher, principal at Hannah Given. And at the time I was hired in the district, he was actually the director of science in the district. And Bill just really encouraged me, and actually he just really a huge investment in me. When I first got into the science, inquiry-based science was one of the big words. We're gonna do inquiry-based science. So I went out to Berkeley and trained for 3 summers in great exploration of math and science. And it was under Bill Batter. So that was like one of my first educational mentors. My first mentor was absolutely my grandmother, who had a love of, of environmental. We grew a garden every year. We harvest our garden every year. And I grew up in the inner city, right off of 55th and Kinsman. So my grandmother juiced, she grew plants. My grandfather ordered herbs from the botanical gardens, so always had an exposure to the very natural parts of life. And they just encouraged my love for, the stray cats and birds and all of those different things. So my grandparents and, like I say, one of my first mentors was Bill Batters when I got into the field of education.
Okay. If you could go back and talk to 9-year-old Ruth, 10-year-old Ruth, what, with the benefit of hindsight and where you are now, what would you tell yourself then? What career advice would you give to yourself?
I would tell Ruth to do better in math, to embrace math for what it was. As early as I think like the 3rd grade, I felt like, oh God, math kept me away from saying I would be an engineer or different things like that. But I believe if the 9-year-old Ruth had an opportunity, or someone with the insight and foresight to teach math in such a way through the sciences or through reading, I think that that young lady probably would. I would probably like be an actual structural engineer or something right now. But I would definitely tell her to, to really, embrace all subject areas and, in the same manner. Yeah.
And along those lines, and this is really the last question, is what advice would you have today for kids of that same age that are kind of thinking about, that are kind of starting to explore their interest in what they want to do? What would you tell them about STEM? What advice would you have?
Man, one thing I always, and I have the opportunity to talk to scholars now, is to tell them that never stop trying to figure it out. And I always tell them that, like, figure it out. And I really, and just encourage them to have that constructive struggle. So I always tell kids, never stop trying to figure it out, and never stop asking why. Because I believe at a young age, I stopped, I was just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to stay here because I like, and never, really explored a lot of like math, more of it. I stopped figuring it out. Like, I'm just going to do it enough to get it. But I would just tell my scholar, and as I tell them, never stop trying to figure it out. And when they do that, they end up tapping into all these other talents that they have, and all these other, all these other ways of learning something new. I would tell you this. My grandmother ran a summer school every summer for us and my cousins. And I was the lunch lady. And I couldn't, like, why do my dad keep making me, we call my grandmother my dad, why am I the lunch lady? And finally she was like, you're the lunch lady because you need to see how many of your cousins show up, how many sandwiches you need to make. I want you to engage in these numbers as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she didn't tell me. I don't think I asked like why until I was a little bit older, like my third summer being a lunch lady. But she just had the foresight to even, to like do that. But yeah, that math, me and math still today. Why, and my dad's a land surveyor, and he, one of 5 Black land surveyors in the state of Ohio. And he and my boys are very math intelligent. Like they're, but I don't know. I didn't get that. But I enjoy hearing him talk about it because I could see it.
This interview is part of a series of profiles for NeoSTEM's I Am STEM initiative, a public awareness campaign to elevate the visibility and accessibility of the many STEM career pathways available to underserved students throughout Northeast Ohio. Please visit www.neostem.org to hear more inspiring stories.